Hello everyone, I'm Delta from DeltasCorner, and today I have a quick one for you. A couple weeks ago I put out a video focusing on the Nintendo Switch and the Switch's future with the influx of PC handhelds. I may have hinted at the fact that the Switch has some flaws, and we're all aware of the performance flaws with the Nintendo Switch, with the Tegra APU, but for me the biggest flaw with the Nintendo Switch is actually its control. I can handle the 30 frames per second thing, but what I can't handle is the Joy-Cons and the peripherals, the controllers, and typically it's garbage what's available out there. And besides the obvious internal drawbacks with the Nintendo Switch, the Tegra APU and the low frames per second thing, the Switch also features some pretty nasty peripheral drawbacks. To include this horrendous thing that Nintendo thinks is a controller. Look at that thing is disgusting. Who would have thought this would be passable as a controller? Certainly not Nintendo, because right after they launched the Switch, they also launched the $70 Pro controller. And what that $70 gets you is a halfway passable controller. Something kind of similar to the base PS5 or Xbox controller. But shortly after, a bunch of third-party companies started dropping Nintendo Switch controllers, and they're all garbage. All of them. Pretty much all of them, I should say. But this video isn't about the Switch failures, it's about the one company that actually managed to get it right. The first decent Switch Pro controller, at least in my experience, the Binbo Gemini. And this thing does a whole lot right and a little bit wrong, but we'll get into that later. But first, what is Binbo? Binbo is a relatively new e-commerce company. They're based out of China, and after doing a little bit of research, I found that the owner of the company basically started the company, named it after his two friends he grew up with. He used to play video games with his friends, and essentially just imagined a company that can remake already established things and make them better, if that makes sense. And so far, it seems that their main focus is on Nintendo Switch peripherals and also charging docks for the Meta Quest. Their first release was the Binbo Joypad Joy-Cons. That's a mouthful. And then they happened to release also a docking station for the Meta Quest. And then they released this bad boy, the Gemini. And let's start with what this thing gets right. What does your $40 get you with a third-party Switch Pro controller? First off, you probably noticed that it has a unique design. It has this kind of glossy, glassy kind of face over it. And if you can see it, there's like a window right here. And what you can see is the dual HD rumble. This thing has HD rumble, and it actually honestly feels pretty good. And then on the back of the controller here, I don't know if you can see it very well. Let's get in the light. There we go, kind of. Can you kind of see it? There's a toggle switch right in the middle. I'm not on it. There we go. Try not to flick you guys off. You can switch it between linear and HD rumble. I don't know why you would want linear, but they do offer that option in case you do want it. Also, next to the rumble button is the... Oh, I gotta look. Oh. Right there, the turbo button. You can see it. Oh, God, the lighting is not great for this. But anyways, it's right there. You just gotta trust me. It is there. I don't know. I don't use turbo buttons, so I don't really know exactly how it works. But whatever. And like most gaming products today, this thing comes packed with RGB. And honestly, the RGB looks really nice on this thing. And going to the back again, across from the turbo button is the little light bulb button. And that button is what controls the RGB. I'm hitting the turbo button. There we go. Kind of get the point right there. But yeah, I'm actually really shocked with this thing. This thing is actually really nice looking. And then some other notable things about this is that you get kind of your like basic membrane, you know, X, Y, A, B buttons. The bumpers on it, they are pretty good. Like, these are probably the best bumpers I've ever felt on a Switch controller. The D-pad on it, it's clicky, it's very responsive. It's a D-pad. There isn't anything wrong with it. It's very functional. And now we're gonna get to the best part of this controller. The one reason why you would buy this controller over anything Nintendo comes out with or any other third-party company comes out with, and that is these joysticks. These joysticks, they are Hall effect. This big thing, no more stick drift. If you don't know what Hall effect joysticks are a type of joystick that uses magnets and electrical conductors to measure their position, distance, and movement when in use. Unlike standard analog sticks, which use electrical resistance to detect movement, Hall effect joysticks have no physical contact between the moving parts. This eliminates the dreaded stick drift. We've all been there. Also, these Hall effect joysticks are really, really good on this controller. Precision is not a thing that you ever say with Nintendo Switch products, but honestly, this thing, these are pretty good. This is pretty similar to what you're going to get with an Xbox or PlayStation controller. And at the end of the day, precision is kind of what you're looking for with joysticks. So now that we got the good parts out of the way, what are the bad parts? And there are some drawbacks to this controller, but the good news is that the drawbacks are pretty much based on personal preference more than the tech itself. First, I'd like to go back to the glossy faceplate. Not sure if you can see it, but let's be honest here, it gets smudgy. It's a smudgy controller. This is not a matte controller. This controller you are going to have to wipe down every once in a while. But again, that's kind of a personal preference with people. It doesn't affect the usability of the controller. And the other downside of this controller is this thing is very lightweight. It kind of depends on what you consider a pro controller. I have another pro controller right here, the Xbox Elite controller. And when you hold this thing in your hands, this thing feels like a premium piece of technology. There's weight to it. Metal parts on it. The plastic even feels really nice. Everything from the rubberized grips. This is pretty much the gold standard for a pro controller. This thing feels slightly better than the cheapest thing you've ever held in your life. This is all plastic around the whole thing besides the little rubber on the joysticks. My voice cracked. Oh well. It's just lightweight. It doesn't feel like a premium quality controller, even though it does perform similar to one. Whatever, it's your personal preference. My cat's going crazy. Other than those things, this controller is really good. This is the best Nintendo Switch controller I have ever used. And for $40, I know I was comparing it to a $130 Elite controller. I'll deal with the lightweight plastic for good mechanics and good precision on a controller. And really, other than that, there aren't like real major drawbacks. I guess one thing I didn't hit on is, it has a 1000 milliamp battery, which is maybe a little low, but you get 10 hours out of a full charge. I think that's perfectly acceptable, especially for a Switch controller. So yeah, there you go. That's the Binbo Gemini. This is a fantastic Switch controller. I would recommend this controller to anyone who's still playing the Nintendo Switch. And if you're still using that Frankenstein Joy-Con controller that came with the Switch, you're kind of a sucker. I'm just kidding. But if you are in the market looking for a controller, you can't beat this right now. But the Binbo Gemini is a great controller, especially for the Nintendo Switch. And if you think this is a good video, give it a thumbs up. Maybe throw in a comment. I don't know, subscribe if I'm super lucky. And I'm Delta from Delta's Corner, and I want to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great week. See you next time.